Happy Wednesday, CCMP family. Pastor Jason here with you today, and it is a gorgeous 1st of December. It kind of blows my mind that it's already December 1st, to be completely honest. And then it's December 1st, and then all of a sudden the weather's going to decide to warm back up. We've been in the 20s and 30s at night, and then all of a sudden, December 1st, it's supposed to get up to 70 degrees today, and then it won't be nearly as cold for the next 10 days. So there you have it. I don't understand how God works the weather, but it just happens. Phenomenal week. Praying for each of you as we're recovering and detoxing from bloating out at Thanksgiving. I myself, I have a great spiritual gift, which is I eat too much and I consume too much. So I'm good at that. God gifted me in that way. And so, but we had an amazing Thanksgiving in the Shive household. I hope that y'all had an amazing Thanksgiving as well where you were at. So we're pressing in, and now we are officially in. For those of you, I mean, at CCMP, we've been doing Christmas for like 2 or 3 weeks now. It's those of you that wait till after Thanksgiving, I give you permission now. Let's get ready and celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. But anyway, I hope everyone's been doing good, beginning to spend more time with family, beginning to enjoy, decorate, celebrate. Right outside my window here, we are getting the Christmas parade floats ready to go. That is my big plug this week. Saturday, 11 o'clock. There's some things that just hold such a community concept. And what I say, when we are the Community Church of Mount Pleasant, I invite you to join us this Saturday at 11 o'clock here behind the mill, behind the building right here in the Kimmin building where the offices are. Join us, walk in the parade, ride on the float. It's going to be a big time, and we represent the kingdom well and our statement as being a major part of this community by participating in the parade. And it's just such a phenomenal way to honor this community and represent Christ well. So I'm going to invite you this Saturday, 11 o'clock. Join us for the parade. We've got a group of people and a team out here working hard to get everything ready. But it's a big thing. It's a big thing. And it's funny because I just reflect on the reality that it's the little things in life that a lot of times are the biggest things in life or make the biggest difference. The smallest habits make the biggest change. The smallest decisions to change mindsets. Even though we've had long-standing addictions, it makes the biggest change. The choice, the first time you make a choice that you've never made before is always the hardest. But it's that little choice that can lead to making the biggest difference. So that's where I want to go today as we get into the devotional. And I want to go, and when we talk about little things, I really believe that most people, I won't say all because there might be some people out there that have never heard a Bible story at all. But most people have enough knowledge of the Bible, have enough random stories that they have no excuse not to follow Jesus Christ. And here's what I mean by that. If we really believe David and Goliath, there is so much you can do. And if you believe David and Goliath, how would you begin to take aim at the struggles and challenges and big, quote-unquote, big things in your life that you can't overcome and face, but yet you know David and Goliath? What would it look like to make a choice to believe that story and believe what God did through David? He wants, and Jesus came and proved that he wants to do it through your life. If you believe that, you would realize that there's so much in front of you that you can accomplish in the name of Jesus. So let's jump in today, and that's where I want to go today is David and Goliath. And I want to read just one verse here. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 40. Chapter 17 is the whole David and Goliath saga and story, but here we are, verse 40. He, that would be David, picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream. He put them into his shepherd's bag, and then armed only with his shepherd's staff and sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. And I love this story. And I love this verse in this story. One, because it's the time and moment where David makes the decision to do what he does. He makes the decision to go and fight the Philistine, that no one else. And I sit here, and as I read this story, I'm amazed because David has come. His father has come. Excuse me. His father has told him, "I want you to go and take food to your brothers, and go and feed your brothers." And the very fact that David is there serving his brothers, So many times you have no idea what serving others will do for you and opportunities it will give you. For David, it is now the story that is probably the most told story in Vacation Bible School besides the gospel. And here's the reality. So David goes and he makes this decision. And I always think of courage when I think of this. David had a lot of courage to face Goliath. And courage is obvious. But I think what's more important is what allowed David to choose courage. What allowed David to choose courage? I think a lot of it had to do with his humility. And here's how I define humility. It's not just we think of ourselves less than others. Humility is really because I can think of myself less than others, but I still do things for other people. I still do things for other people, honestly, to feel better about myself and who I am. So I still struggle at the heart level. To me, humility is other people's needs are genuine. I see and acknowledge that other people's needs are genuine. And I make a decision based off of the fact that other people have genuine needs, even though I have my own needs. And I choose to forsake my needs to address their needs. That is what humility means to me. So David, I think he reveals humility, but he also reveals authority. And it's authority that comes from the fact that this is who God is. We have the God of Israel on our side, the God who promises this land is ours. Why are we cowering behind and away from a Philistine in the battlefield? And so he's sitting there, and that's where it's the authority. That's what gives him the audacious faith to step out onto the battlefield with Goliath. Is the authority, not the authority that he carries, but the authority that God carries. And really, each step in David's life was essential to further put him in a place to defeat Goliath. I mean, let's think back earlier in David's life. I like to think of what if. What if when he was anointed by Samuel, when Samuel came to anoint David as the next king, he was the last in a line of a lot of brothers. His dad didn't even pick him to come up. And it would have been really easy for him to sit there and say, why should I even go? Dad didn't even want me there. I don't want to go. Dad didn't. Why? I wasn't even picked. Why should I go? If that was the faith, he would never have been here. He would have never been anointed. He would have never been selected. He would have chosen just like many of us do. We love the idea of the gift of Jesus Christ, but yet many of us don't choose to do anything with it or open it in order to use it appropriately. We like the concept of I get the get out of hell free card, feel better about myself, but really we go back and we still struggle with the same stuff because we never actually opened the gift that salvation reveals. We need to understand that salvation through Jesus, salvation is the starting point and the starting line. It is never the end goal. It is never the end goal. It is the starting point to living a life and following Jesus Christ. So David, if he would have accepted the mainstay idea, which may have actually been the truth, his dad, Jesse, may have never actually found him worthy. He would have never stepped into destiny. If he had never faced the lions and bears, if he would have just chosen to run away instead of fight them, if you can't even fight lions and bears, how are you going to begin to develop the courage to face and fight a giant in front of one and no one else will? Sometimes you got to face some lions and bears before you can ever face the giant in your life. And what if he didn't even desire to go and serve his brothers? His dad asked him, go and serve. Go and feed your brothers and take some food to the battlefield front. And that's the beauty that I was saying earlier. It would have been easy. I could see David being bitter. I've walked through a season where there's been opportunities for me to be bitter. But yet David made a choice. No, I don't care if my brothers have always been picked before me, if my brothers have always been the ones that should have been chosen and not me. But here's the reality. I'm going to choose because I'm walking into destiny, and I'm going to choose to serve them. I'm going to choose to serve them. And the only reason he was on the battlefield that day to face Goliath was because he made the choice to go and serve other people. Who do you serve? See, most of us, and David knew, and it had to be so hard for David because David already knew he was supposed to be anointed to be king. But yet his life was all but the contrary to that. It took him 40 years to actually experience the promise that God had given him. And if that was us, most of us either get frustrated or complacent in the place that God's positioned us. That's really what this story is about. How did David get positioned in this place for maximum impact? Most of us, when we're positioned, we're either frustrated. There's always three choices whenever we're positioned in a certain place for a season of time. One, we get frustrated. We get frustrated because we don't understand, and I would have never picked to go through this. God, why would you pick for me to go through this? And we get angry and pissed off at God and frustrated. Two, we get complacent because God's given us a lot of blessings and we make the blessings about us and not about other people. And so we get complacent. We get comfortable. And thirdly, we always have the choice to act on purpose. We all have three choices in any season of life that we're positioned in. What do you choose in the season that you're in the season that you're positioned in, that God has allowed you to be placed in? Do you choose complacency? Do you choose frustration? Or do you choose purpose? I want to end here because there's an amazing my aunt, my great aunt. She's the closest thing I had to a grandma on my father's side of the family. My grandma passed away before I was born, but my great aunt. I love this story because she's 93 years old. She's in the nursing home. She knew the scriptures. She had spent time on stage evangelizing. In a season of years of life in the United States where women didn't do that, but she did that. But now she's at a point where she's in the nursing home in 2013, and not at home, kind of frustrated and kind of complacent. And she's even using scripture to validate her complacency. Well, to live is Christ, to die is gain. I'm ready to gain, baby. She didn't say baby, but she said to gain. She was ready to gain. And I just remember having a conversation with her, and I told her, okay, well, I hate to break it to you, but you're still here. You want to gain, but you're still here. So let's stop forsaking to live as Christ and understand that there's a reason that we're still here. And you wouldn't believe it. A week later, she told me I would go and visit her, and she told me this. She was at St. Andrews in Concord, Assisted Living Center, and she told me, she's like, you won't believe it. This is the best evangelism I've ever done in my life. I said, what do you mean, Aunt Mary? What do you mean? She said, they're so old they can't run away. They can't run away. She said, so I just ask them, like, what do they know about Jesus? And we go from there. And it's beautiful. But she found purpose. But she had to choose that. She had to choose that. And really there's three questions. I mean, are we seeking God? Are we trusting God? Are we resting in God? I think, and many of us, where I personally struggle the most is resting in God. When I rest, heck, I make it about me. And that's wrong. I'm not validating that. When I rest, I'm like, oh, well, I know Joshua and Kezia, y'all want Daddy to play with you, but I can't. I'm resting right now. I'm watching the game. Or, baby, I know those dishes need to get done, but I'm resting. That's not resting in the Lord. That's me I've worked so hard all week. This is my time. I need to learn how to rest better in Him. And I've been convicted of that over Thanksgiving. See, the real battle that we see in David's life was it was never against the Philistines. You know why? Because God had already seen that victory. The victory was already theirs because of the power that comes from being positioned in God. They were where they needed to be. We need to never underestimate your current place. But what David figured out was God's ultimate priority is to position his heart. None of the other Israelites were in a position on that battlefield. Their hearts were not in the right place to face Goliath. But here's the reality, David's was. So David was positioned. Where's your heart today? What are you positioned to do? And I'm going to close on this. One of my favorite books, one of my favorite sections of Scripture is Exodus 23, starting in verse 20. And I'm just going to end on a couple verses here. and we'll be done. Exodus chapter 23, verse 20. God tells the people of Israel, who have just at this point rejected a direct relationship with God. The Israelites told Moses, God had presented and God had come at Mount Sinai and said, I will be your God and you will be my people. And the people of Israel were like, that's kind of crazy. Moses, we'll go to you, you go to God for us. And you know what the consequences of that? It complicated a relationship that was meant to be personal. 600, and that's why we have the whole book of Leviticus and 10 Commandments later. So post that, but here's God still promising even after they rejected. Exodus 23, verse 20. See, this is the Lord talking. See, I am sending an angel before you, talking to the people of Israel, to protect you on your journey, to lead you safely to the place I have prepared for you. And what I want you to understand is that I want you to understand that God will always protect you. And here's the thing. When things don't go right, we probably don't feel protected. But we need to remember, when things don't go right the way that we think they should go, we don't feel protected. God will always protect you. We need to remember, even in the book of Job, even though Job suffered massive affliction, God always told the devil, you can do this, but you can't do this. God's always fighting for you, even when it doesn't feel like it. God will always protect you. God will always position you on your journey. There's never a mistake in the season that you're going through. And God will always prepare you along the way. And as we think about that concept of preparation, I'm going to skip down. And God explains to them that I'm going to kick all of these people out. And there's a land that we're overflowing with milk and honey. I promise you're going to get to it. You've got to serve me and you can't serve other gods. And here's where he ends. But all of these enemies are there. But I will not drive them out in a single year. This is verse 29. Because the land would become desolate and the wild animals would multiply and threaten you. I will drive them out a little at a time until your population has increased enough to take possession of the land. Here's the reality, family. We're ready to grow now, and God says, if I gave you the promise that you were meant to have now, the very promise that you were meant to thrive in would kill you. The very land that I'm sending the Israelites to, if I sent it to you now, it would destroy you. Little by little, God is growing you, God is protecting you, and God is positioning you. We have to trust the process. For David, it took 40 years. I don't know how long it'll take for you. I don't know how long it'll take for me. But we've got to trust the process. So this week, I want you to reflect on, God, there's no mistaking my positioning. And I need to trust that God is preparing me, and I know that He's protecting me. Thank y'all for joining us. Again, church will be this Sunday, 9:30, 11 o'clock. Saturday's the parade. Hope to see you there. Have a great Wednesday.